So we are both here today to talk about making BTEC easy. So I'm joined by Rachel George from Reading College. She's going to say a little bit more about herself in a minute. So my name's Hannah Simon. I'm Learning and Development Manager at Reading College. And we are putting together this video mainly for new teachers, but I'm sure there's some other teachers out there who might be interested in what Rachel's going to share today. So we're going to make it mainly focus on sort of different types of BTEC assessment and just how to make it more manageable. Things like marking and feedback and what that all looks like. So she's going to share some of the things she's learned over the last couple of years, having sort of struggled with certain things and then kind of found solutions that worked. So, Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, so my name is Rachel George, as Hannah stated, and I'm a health and social care lecturer. I'm also the course leader for the Year 1 programme. I do teach on public services and I teach level 1 provisions as well. Yeah, it's a mouthful, can't put that in an email. Yes, so I've been teaching health and social care BTEC for this will be my third academic year, my first year as a qualified teacher. So I've had 2 years of what I like to call my practice run, and I've learned a lot from that. So hopefully I'll be able to share a bit more about how that's developed.
So what I thought we'd start with is just sort of different types of assessment, sort of describing kind of formative, summative, and taking us through a little bit of what that looks like.
Yeah, okay. So it originally, like in the very beginning, so when I first started teaching BTEC at Reading College, it was very traditional. The curriculum and everything about the course was very structured towards the BTEC. So we taught in units and we developed units, and we taught in, that was just how it went. And we just taught the 9 units that needed to be taught for that one academic year. And that's no one's fault, except for that was what BTEC structures is, so you follow it. And it was very different then, because BTEC guidelines were a little bit sort of lax, I guess, in terms of the fact you could give them lots of feedback on their assessments. They could have repetitive goes, so they could have like a second hand in, and then if they still didn't hit the pass, you could help them still, So there was lots of different changes that happened. New BTEC guidelines came in, which then changed a lot of things. And although it felt very suddenly restricting us, actually I found that it's actually enabled me to do a lot more with their formative feedback. So although in their actual summative assessments, so the last assessment they do, I can't give them loads of feedback about their work. It's very basic stuff. It has enabled me to give them sort of flip learning that enables them to get lots of different feedback from me, and also it's made me structure different types of assessment. So instead of it just being lots of essays that are written sort of 5 to 6 pages long on the same subject, covering bits of criteria, because that's what it was in the first year I was here. We've changed it now, so we use videos, students do presentations, prezzies, s'mores, loads of different online tools. We just chucked in 2 new ones that I found off the internet, making posters that they're about to try that look amazing. So we'll tell you how those turn out. But why not have a go? So they use like Google as well a lot, so slides and drive and draw and all those sorts of stuff. They video each other in scenarios, or they can just do like this, like a hangout, but they record it and then just send it in with them answering their questions. Because some of them elaborate so much more verbally than they can write it down. Again, that's the beauty of the BTEC, is that this is for students who can't necessarily get their head around an exam. I mean, I personally don't love an exam, it's not really my forte. So these students are usually that same sort of calibre. And if you're kinesthetic or visual, then you're going to need to be assessed in that sort of style as well. You can't be expected to not. So that's why I try and keep that changed up as much as possible. But also there's obviously the physical aspect of getting them to demonstrate certain things. So like it's a hand washing thing because it's part of their health and hygiene, stuff like that. So we get to try and do as much demonstration and physical.
Just writing about that's quite artificial, really.
Yeah, if you think about it, like if you was to write down how you wash your hands, that's quite boring.
Yeah,
it's the truth. And
learning
learners,
challenging actually to make it as detailed as you
exactly. Like then I rub my thumb, and it's just, it's not, Whereas when we can professionally show them and then witness them doing it without any prompts and help, and they can actually talk to us and say, okay, so now I'm going to wash through my thumbs and make sure that that's clean. I'm doing that because, and that's so that's really good, and they enjoy it, and it just feels more comfortable, and it also in terms from a teaching perspective, we've assessed them very, very quickly.
So did you encounter any sort of problems when we made that move away from the written assessments, particularly in terms of like other colleagues or your manager or even the assessors sort of externally verifying them?
Yes. Yes. So external verification, I did quite a lot of research with my team about what's going to be acceptable for a BTEC, ID, and ED and stuff. So we were very like, oh, this is going to be okay? Are they going to accept it? So after a couple of discussions with some people who work on the inside of BTEC, let's say, we did find that actually they're really happy for us to go ahead and really happy for us to do these things. So we had BTEC come in and see other people in the college who've been doing slightly different things like project-based learning and stuff like that, and they really approved of it. And all the online resources that we used as well. So we kind of got the feel that that's going to be fine. I think we struggled with terms of my colleagues at times, like the old staff that we did have struggled with the new approach because they were quite traditional, which is absolutely fine. And they're great for the academic side that's embedded. But again, they didn't really take on that fresh look of let's try and do a different kind of assessment. And my manager embraced it. But the new staff, I think, for them, it was like amazing because, you know, it's taken away a lot of that hard marking that was quite difficult to get through. So for the new staff that came and joined us in the team, I think it was a fresh breath of fresh air for them. So yeah, that was quite good.
Have you had any sort of feedback from the students in terms of how maybe the student feedback or anything has changed between the two?
Well, I think, yeah. So I think what was really valid and for me really important was, so my first years that are now second years, if you can imagine. So they're sort of, we had a year group that were on the old BTEC's sort of guidelines and stuff, and then we had the first years which were on the new BTEC stuff. So you were teaching at one point in the old style and at one point in the new. So what I kind of did is, once we'd had our town meeting and talked about curriculum redesign and stuff, I literally stripped the curriculum back with the help of the team, rebuilt it around the foundations of project-based learning and what a super learner and the employer. Once we'd done that, it was kind of, it just made sense that that was then followed and flowed into the second years. So they just copied that, what we built for the first year into the second year. So the second years have gone from having this traditional structured units, and then they've gone into this new brand new project-based learning. Luckily, I'd integrated it or trialed it the year before with a small project. Yeah, so they knew about it. It wasn't completely alien, but yeah, that was quite interesting because although they enjoyed it, they enjoyed the project much more because there was much more going on and it was much more fun in terms of when they got to be assessed. It was more practical, but there was little things like, because they hadn't been assessed on a presentation, they crumbled a little bit under the nerves and the pressure, and the expectation wasn't there that it was just what they did. Whereas the first years that are now second years that have had that year, if I said to them, okay, so this assessment will be presenting a training package about how to support people when they're working with dementia clients. Okay. And they just do it because the expectation is that that's acceptable.
This is great for them going into workplace if they can kind of present people's situations. It opens up a lot more doors if they're able to do that kind of
thing. Well, the employability skills that come from being able to create your own sort of handouts, leaflets and stuff for presentations, not just for university but for employers. You know, if they're ever faced with that challenge of here's three, you know, we've paid £300 for you to go on a training day, well done, that was great, but now I want you to tell everybody else at work about it. They're not going to panic when they have to then create this presentation and leaflet and a bit of a flyer. So that's, you know, really embedding their employability as much as their educational needs as well.
Okay, so mostly gone through all those formative summative. I think one thing that we've been chatting about before was that you mentioned a particular project which you just added on that layer of kind of stretch and challenge. So just pushing the students to go that little bit further than what they need to do for the qualification and kind of integrating some more of the stuff that they
okay. Oh yeah. So something I did really recently was I got the students to do a presentation as part of their assessment. During that presentation, I invited members of staff across the college to come in and help me because I was assessing their actual work and their content. And at that time, you know, it's difficult to then assess them for presentation skills it can be difficult to do that. And so I invited staff who then turned up, which was lovely, to help. And they sort of did half-an-hour slots where they sat and watched students and gave them feedback on their actual presenting skills. So how they stood, how they spoke, how they interacted, eye contact, all of those great things. So that was really, really brilliant. And from that, the students, I asked them to instantly reflect to see how they do and manage under that, like what do they instantly feel about how it's gone. The staff obviously very different feedback, and I give them a little bit as well. I then get the learners. What I got them to do was to do some research into two different theorists of reflection. So they looked at biblical, and they created some really lovely posters that they put up in theory corner in the classroom, so that they could then go back to if they ever sort of was like, oh, what was that again? And it's just there for everyone's information as well. So it's nice to have that around them because it reminds them of what they're working with. So they did that and they created that, but as a stretch and challenge because I knew that some learners obviously able to sort of push themselves that little bit further, or I encourage that, and that's where it's the stretch, isn't it, when you push them. And some of them did a small, and they created a small online, which is like a free flyer service, I guess. It's you create little flyers and stuff, and the students then put in there lots of information about the reflective cycles and which ones they've used and which one they chose because they worked together and then shared, and then they chose one that suits them best. The one they feel most comfortable with, they then recreated structured questioning, that they then use as their own templates. So when they write a weekly reflection in their diaries from their placement, they're reflecting on the questions they've created, not somebody else, because then they can answer their own question and they understand the questioning, and they know what they're looking for. So, and to be fair, quite a few of the students did do the small because they really enjoyed it, and then once they saw one doing how fun it was, once they saw one doing it, they were like, oh, okay, and sort of all of a sudden everyone's pace picked up a little bit so they could get onto the stretch and challenge. But yeah, they've created them and they're brilliant. Now, I'll be honest, they're not assessed, they're not for anything. I mean, I went around the room and just sort of, went behind them and checked some stuff like information. So what I got them to do at that point before they went live, because once you put a small bit live, it's not accessible. But before they did that part, I went around and checked their content to make sure they put the bits that I wanted them to make sure was on there. And then the person sat next to them, their pair that they were working with, they had to swap their smalls and proofread each other's and check for as well together. Because with 40 students in a class, or up to 40 students, I can't do that for everybody. But they can help each other and they don't mind. And it I think, as well, builds relationships and stuff like that and good rapport with each other. So, yeah, they did that and they're really, really cool. Like, I saw all the smalls in their community because they uploaded them onto there to share them, and they're really, really lovely. And they work really hard on things. But they don't, it's one thing except just for them. And trialing it small as well, that's good. So when that comes into assessment, it's not the first time they've touched it. So they're not going to go, what's this? Yeah, they've had a go with it and had a play. So yeah.
Particularly for any student, I think reflective practice is just so important, just about them kind of knowing how well they've done on something and what that looked like and then what they can do better next time, rather than just relying on you for that. And then kind of, they've got their own resources for doing that themselves, which particularly for your students in the workplace, I guess that's going to be vital, and they've kind of done a day's work just sort of reflecting on how it went.
Well, this is it. And I think it's not that. I think because they've created their own questions as well, I know that while they're in there, it might be something where they go, oh, this is the point for that reflection part, that question, that part of the reflection. This is where that's going to fit in there. And it's just to help them sort of build that bond of where they both sit, because it's fine me teaching them lots of things, but until they practice it and use it. So getting them to create that just makes them really independent. That's what I want independent learners.
Okay, so if we move sort of slightly on from assessments and just into kind of feedback, so what that looks like. Obviously, we've talked about kind of the limitations of BTEC feedback, so just how you navigate that with informative assessments and kind of building feedback. So what does that sort of look like?
So formative assessment is something that I've developed because I found last year that giving them just the summative that's very narrow is difficult in terms of them improving. So they do need the formative assessment throughout, but again, with sort of a 70 numbers sort of student can become quite difficult to manage marking and extra, so I don't make myself extra work. Yet try to give them all the feedback. It's kind of like, how do you do that? So what I developed was Keep Learning, and I don't know how other people use Keep Learning as such. Not everyone uses it in the same way. Some people use it as homework-based tool, but I use it. Some people use it as a learn the chunk outside the classroom and then discuss it in the classroom, which is also great as well. But I kind of used it as a sort of pre-assessment assessment. So I would set for learning that I would ask them for the assessment of keys that they'll eventually have it in different formats. So I'll ask for tables or lists, or I'd ask them to just explain a concept or understand it with a definition or find the resources that would, stuff like that, so that I can then look at their referencing and bibliographies and spelling and grammar, and I can look at their, can they put on, basic things like a name and a student number, there's a good start, and a title and a page number. But I can give them loads of that kind of feedback and give them loads of in-depth stuff about their content and how they're, not, just their grammar and stuff on where they're not breathing and they're just telling me frantically the things they know, which is great, but they need to think about that when it comes to constructed paragraphs and stuff. So that when it then gets to their summative assessment, that's sort of how that's done. It's used through Google Classroom, so everything is loaded through Google. They have a flipped learning classroom and then they have their assessment classroom. So they have two different classrooms. So they can, the flipped learning obviously is complete choice. I mean, I structure it so that it doesn't feel like an extra task, it's just what they do. But if they don't hand in an exercise, at the end of the day, it's for their benefit for them to do it. So I explain that it's your benefit, you hand it in, you get some feedback to you. So they do. They hand it in, and I give it a look over. And sometimes, if it's just something on specific content, I can look over everyone's very quickly and then summarise and group feedback. So I'll just do a quick presentation, a couple of slides of here's the key points I found you've done really well at, and here's the bits that need improvement as a group. Here's what we need to focus on more, and then do sort of a quick sort of half-an-hour session on researching that particular subject and gaining a more in-depth understanding. So that sort of comes through quite quickly, and that also then allows me to, if they're in the classroom and they've got the computer and the laptop, and they're verbally give them feedback, give them lots of like, that doesn't, look like this, or get them to structure all their subheadings for the report, and I can make sure that they're okay, so their content's going to be okay, to save them doing what they don't need to do. Yeah,
so they're not having to resubmit for something
really small, because the thing is that I do find that actually a lot of the time that is the problem. It's the basic stuff. I found that over, it's just that's not the format that we asked for, and it's because they don't quite understand that part. And I think sometimes it's taken for advantage that their prior knowledge, you assume a level 3 health and social care student, their prior knowledge is quite vast, but actually it's not always the case when it comes to different forms of assessment. So it's about making sure that's there.
So obviously, past all the formative stuff, we've kind of got the summative. So what does your feedback look like there?
Very simple. Yeah. So there is literally no feedback in terms of academic skills or content, because the thing with the new BTEC guideline, it's quite difficult to put in their structured feedback on comments without it being what's classed as help or sort of guidance. So it all becomes a bit of a barrier. So that's how I get around it. I do the formative bits first, and then so when I do get to summative, it's very simple. It's commenting on the work directly through the classroom. I make select bits of the text and literally just put D1 achieved or M3 achieved or do whatever it may be. Unless it's, it might be something like please proofread, because it's something very simple, or I'll select certain words and maybe just say be careful with spellings with rush, and you can see that, so you want them to slow down. But that's it. And at the very beginning of every assessment, I have a copy and pasted text, which I'm quite happy to say I do that. It's all written out, so it'll say what it is, so which assessment it is for what particular unit within the BTEC, which is the project. The criteria that they're asking for is listed, and it says not achieved originally, and then copy and paste it on into the box with any outcomes, and just edit the bits they don't need. So if they've achieved, they're taking that out. It's very simple, but it works because the students, it's easy, it's simple for them to read, and BTEC IVs, that's what they want. An IB wants to be able to see what you've done as feedback. And so that in that sense of it, it works really well as structure. So they now know what they're looking for in terms of when they're looking for what you've marked, they can see it. But a student and the learner, like the first thing they see is what they've achieved and not achieved in there, and they know what they're instantly looking to change. So it's, that why leave it a mystery? It's not, it's their work, they need to know. So I'm a great believer in that. So that's it.
So where do you track all of that then? What does the tracking system
So my tracking system on a assessment by assessment basis is a Google spreadsheet with lots of filters on it and bits of shading here and there to just help me guide it. But it's really simple. It's across the box, so it's all gridded P1 to P2, whatever it may be, and it's just a little cross in the box or an R for resubmission because they haven't quite hit that criteria against their name, and that's it. And then at the end of all of that, once they've finished or completed a unit within a project, I then put that generated information into a markup component. But again, that comes at the very end, because otherwise I'm in and out and lots of different types of tracking is never good. And work smart and stuff like that, because otherwise teachers, I think there's so many different ways to track information like in every educational system or wherever you work, which is great. There's lots of options for different types of people, but I'm a very methodical worker, so I need to have structure in terms of grids, ticks, and that's enough. And I like that.
And it's in one place until you need to transfer it.
Exactly. And the brilliance of it is my IB, my internal IB, and my managers and my team all have access to my tracking. So they could all see where I'm at with marking and tracking, so it necessarily doesn't need all the questioning. So, yeah.
Cool. So, obviously your marking load is pretty big. I imagine any teacher on BTEC is going to be fairly large. What are your top tips for kind of managing that and making the best of it?
Okay, first things first, mark 5 a day. I got taught this at the beginning and ignored it because obviously I was a new teacher and didn't really understand what they meant. I didn't understand the greatness of this, so I had to make all my own mistakes because that's the type of person I am anyway. So if you're going to do that, don't do that. Make them all and then come back. But yeah, you'll learn. But yeah, so mark 5 a day. It's really, really important to make sure that when you're marking work that you're actually getting somewhere. Because I find that what I struggle with is the first 5. So the first 5 pieces of work I have to mark, I struggle with. So you pick one from the top, middle, and bottom in terms of your students because you already know, you gauge it because you've already assessed them, you've done the initial assessments. In my particular instance, I've obviously done all the formative and flipped learning, so I already know where I'm gauging it. So I always find that I take what I think would be a distinction student, a merit student, a class student, and I sit and read them, and then I mark them, because that it reassures me of my decisions, and it just makes sure that I'm being fair and equal across the board. So that's a really good way to do it. But make sure, try and mark 5 a day. So in the morning when you get in, you switch your computer on, your emails are going and they're taking forever to load because of 1,000 in your inbox. Mark one. And then because you've done one, you'll feel really empowered to do another. So you'll get to lunch and instead of staring at an empty screen of emails, mark another. And you'll find you'll do a second because you're like, well, I've got a bit more time. So you'll do a second. So that's 3. And then at the end of the day, you've got half an hour before you go out, do 2. And that makes you feel like you've been really, really productive with your time whilst you've been at work. And by the end of the week, you've now marked 25. And whatever else you've squeezed in, if you've got a bit of admin and you've got to achieve a few more to go. And I know that, like for me personally, with 70 students, 5 is, unfortunately, I have to mark at least sort of 7 a day, I guess, with a 10-day turnaround, and more. But if you've got that fluidity of less students and you've got that ability to just move that around, then I recommend you start marking 5 a day from the day it's handed in. Don't wait. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't put it on the back burner, don't put it on the carpet, just go for it. Get it out,
And so how do you sorry, someone just knocked at the door and that totally threw me off my question because some of my students. So I'm just going to let Faz deal with that for now. So yeah, obviously, what would you recommend in terms of how quickly staff get assignments back to students, what would you say is the usual thing you should be aiming for?
Well, BTEC actually set guidelines.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that much because I know you don't teach BTEC.
Yeah.
So a little bit of the opening for that is BTEC actually stipulated that there's a 10-day framework.
Okay.
Obviously with half terms and things like that, everyone's slightly different in your assessment plan, and as long as it's fair and average, that's kind of what you're looking for. But aim for your 10 days. So, you know, the minute that piece of work comes through there, find a way to get it back out. If there's a presentation, make sure the students present, because you can mark it as they're presenting, and that, you know, that 10 minutes of them doing that, gaining all their employability skills, that richness that they get, and then have somebody else there who's giving them some external feedback. Have that richness, because at that same time they're gaining all of that, and you're marking at the same time. You are on a winner. So, you know, try and aim for something very similar to that. But yeah, the first thing when it comes in that day, make a point of like opening it up, going through it all, seeing all what's there, you know, getting a feel for it, read a couple. Like, you know, you always, I don't know, I have some students that are very hilarious, so we make case studies at times, and they share them and stuff. And some of the names and things like that they give each other, these case studies are hilarious, like Mrs. Potter. And the case studies about Harry's child, and it's funny. But they're the things you want to read and find out, because they've said to you, oh, Rachel, read my case study, you know, like, okay, so then do it. But just get involved.
Get that creative element there where you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Yeah, case studies are brilliant. Yeah, they're good for that, because they're a very serious scenario, but the characters are all from something else, so it's helpful.
So how do you, one question which is the is just how you space your assessments out throughout the year? So do you kind of try to front load a few of them? When do you sort of give out their first assessment?
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
Okay, so me this year personally, I decided to integrate their first assessment in their induction week.
Okay.
Yep, that went well. They did a symposium. So the students were given a project. They had like a day and a half to do it together as a team, and they were assessed. That was like their initial assessment, and it also hit part of their criteria. So if they did that assessment, they hit into their criteria later on. So we brought it forward, and they delivered this great, brilliant project. We invited lots of like managers, staff, alumni students came. So previous students turned up to have a little watch and see what's going on and share some knowledge. Second years were there supporting them. It was just, there was loads of lovely, like, rich characters there that were building something else, so that was great. And so throughout to structure it throughout the year, with BTEC is difficult because there's two decisions you can make in terms of their assessments. Either there's a lot of criteria in one assessment, so it's a really big assessment, or it can be lots of little assessments with lots of little chunks of information.
Yeah.
Either way, it has to be answered. The assessment has to be tried. So we make that decision as the lecturer. So what's it? Obviously, with my curriculum change within the project-based learning, allows for us to cover lots of different criteria and different assessments. So mine are quite structured, but their assessments started being handed out as in properly from the. Let me just get this right. Their first assessment was on the 16th of October.
Okay.
So they started September. That's really early. I think that's, you know, for obviously they had lots of flipped learning before that. So actually it was the first week in college they had flipped learning, and they went home with it. So after they'd done their project, delivered at the symposium, I gave them stuff to go away and do, and they had to bring that in the next week. So from day one they had that fast pace. It's good to build that culture of understanding that this is going to be quite busy, and you know, that mentality of being able to do it. So yeah, from the 16th of October there is 1 or 2 assessments every week, right up until May, because we're remedial, so they need to have it all in and done.
And I guess that's a good motivator for them.
Yeah, it's really good for them to do that, but it's also really good, I think, for them in terms of structure, to keep that flow, because, you know, it's no good having it really top heavy, front loaded, because they'll just collapse. Under all the pressure by Christmas, they'll go, not really. I don't want to do that. And then after Christmas, you try and then overload it then, because you think you've got more time. I've tried, by the way, these are all private But then you do it after Christmas, and they've sort of like lulled because they've had a break, and now you're going to try and get that wheel started, and that's really hard. So actually measure it so that it's consistent all the time. So one a week. I know, sometimes it is two. Usually that's before half term though, or it'll be two very different forms of assessment. It'll be something they're demonstrating, so it'll be a physical thing they've got to do. So it won't take up any extra time. Except they'll have to maybe plan it, and it's in class stuff, and then maybe an assessment that they have to write. So we try and balance it like that. Make sure the different assessments are different before a half term because they've got a bit more time to work on them. We expect them to have a bit more time to work on them. So yeah, that's kind of how we structure it.
Helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think it's covered everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's all covered. So,
Okay, brilliant.
Cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And for those of you based at Reading, or indeed in the Activate Learning group, Rachel is rachel.george at reading-college.ac.uk. So if you drop her an email, she'll get in touch with you. You can contact her on Google Plus,
Yeah. Or Twitter.
And where can you find you if they're based in Reading and they want to come have a word, or they're kind of in the building and just want to kind of catch you where you usually found?
On the seafloor, always. I live there. My students would say that I live in the cupboard in my classroom, which we've called C68A, because it's Rachel's apartment, apparently. I don't live here, but if I did, apparently that's where I would be. But now I'm in C63.
Okay, cool. That's where she can be found. Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
and thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.
Bye.